audience is staying the same, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, Mentioned briefly that I am recording this, and so I think it's best just leave your cameras off. And if you have questions or comments, please just toss them in the chat box. It's a small group today, so I will, if I notice it, I will respond to it probably right away. Um, Otherwise, I will definitely answer everyone's questions at the end of this presentation. But thank you all for joining me. I'm pretty excited. I got my German BVB Dortmund jersey on to present. I lived in Germany for a few years and have, yeah, all right, cool. Have a lot of fun memories from my time there, and I'm happy to get other people to Germany as well. With that, I have a number of different fellowship opportunities that could get you to Germany. And I try to touch on different routes, maybe something short term, long term, you know, funding for school or like a specific internship like experience. I'm going to cover a number of different opportunities. And I will say that these aren't all that exist. So if you ever find another route to get to Germany, I know FSU offers a few through the Modern Languages Department, for example. Do not hesitate to bring that to mine or one of my colleagues' attention, and we would still be happy to help you. Um, as I said, I do recognize a few names, but not everyone in here. And so I think it's probably important to start off by talking about what our office does. So let me share my screen and we'll start there before we jump into what fellowships exist. Cool. Okay, so we're going to put this into full screen. Here we go. Okay, so I mentioned in this, the title of this presentation in here is DAAD and other opportunities to study in Germany. DAAD is probably, I'm not certain of this, but in my mind, it's very similar to the United States Department of State's um, Bureau of Cultural and Educational Affairs. So the purpose of that program in the U.S., that agency, is to get Americans abroad and get people from all over the world to the United States. And so that's sort of DAAD's goal too, is to send Germans out into the world and bring people from everywhere else into Germany. Um, and so we're going to talk about a couple scholarships that they offer, and again, as well as other programs. But first, a little bit about us. Um, the Office of National Fellowships, we've been around for about 15 years now. The purpose of this office is to help students to apply for nationally competitive scholarships and fellowships. So these are grants that, as I've sort of already suggested, fund grad school, fund the remainder of your undergrad, fund research opportunities, fund internship experiences, fund leadership skill building opportunities. So really, really covers the gamut, fund study abroad. And as a fellowship advisor, my goal is to help you find the scholarships and fellowships that best fit your interests. And so a lot of, if I've never worked with a student before, a lot of my first meeting is usually just getting to know a student, particularly if they don't have any particular fellowships that they're already looking to apply for. So getting to know students, figuring out, you know, what you care about, how you spend your time, and then pointing out some fellowships that best fit your interests. You're interested in Germany. And so it's likely that these are some of the fellowships I would point out. And then if you chose to apply for any of them, it's not enough for us to just say, hey, these exist, go and apply, but we actually work very closely with our applicants on these fellowships. I try to meet with students as often as once a week to help you build the best application you can in the like month or two before the deadline for that scholarship or fellowship. And so these are not FSU awards. I did mention Modern Languages has a few, and we'd certainly work with any student who brought those to us and asked for assistance. Um, but for the most part, the awards we're working with are applied for not only by FSU students, but maybe by other students around the country, even around the world in some cases. And why the university puts so much into this is there's several layers to that. I think the easiest answer, or this maybe the most simple answer, is that it makes the university look good when students receive these, right? Like to be able to say we have X amount of Fulbright recipients um, is sort of a big deal, and it does play a role in how a university is ranked by U.S. News and World Report, which is whether or not you think that's a great ranking structure, it exists and people care about it, and so we play to it as well. But I think what that simple answer fails to recognize is that there's so much opportunity to learn in these applications. You're taught to critically analyze data. You're taught to critically analyze works of art while you're at FSU, but you're rarely asked to sort of turn those critical lenses on yourself, right? I know from my own undergraduate experience, you could go your entire undergrad without stopping to ask, like, why you're doing the things you're doing, what comes after. In fact, if you're like me, you'll avoid those questions as much as possible. But these applications say, hey, you want this fantastic opportunity? Well, take a moment and think about why this is a really good opportunity for you. So think about why it fits into what you've done and what you want to do. Because whether you're applying to do a research project or you're applying for graduate school, all of these applications, these scholarships and fellowships that we work with, they're all asking you essentially the same question. Who are you? Who do you want to be in your future? And how does this particular opportunity get you a step closer to that goal? Right? And so it's worthwhile. It's sometimes scary to answer those questions, but it's worthwhile. And we hope that whether or not a student receives a fellowship that they apply for, we hope that they walk away with a clearer idea of who they are, what it is they want to accomplish, and like what next steps they would need to take to get to that goal. I also would say that not only are you better because of these applications, not only are you better at answering these questions for yourself, which is extremely important, but you also have found a way to articulate it for someone else, and hopefully found a way to articulate it for someone else that is compelling, that compels them to give you something, right? Whether it's a fellowship, whether it's access to or entrance into graduate school or a job, like these are good skills to have. I actually haven't looked at these bullet points, but the last one says, and sometimes we have snacks. That I probably should have taken away because we are in the virtual world, the remote world, and so I'm not providing snacks these days. But once we get back on campus, we'll be happy to share snacks if it is a safe thing to do. All right, so moving on. I think from here we jump into fellowships. So let's talk about them. Yeah, I mentioned Dodd right at the beginning, right? So supports the internationalization of German universities, promotes German studies and German language abroad, provides developing countries with best practices in establishing universities, and advises decision makers in the area of cultural, educational, and developmental policy. So that is Germany's outward-facing version of DOD. Now, there's an internal process or an internal-facing DOD as well that focuses on getting the Germans individuals out into the world. So what sort of programs do they have? Well, one of them is the Dodd Research Internship in Sciences Engineering. By show of, I don't know, is there a hand raising option? But do I have any STEM students here? Any STEM students, or I'll actually say also entrepreneur business students in this group? I have two. Okay, great. And you might look at this and say, okay, well, I am I am a business or entrepreneur major, and I do not know, based on this description, how this fits me. I will come back to that. I'm going to start with the standard. DoddRise is a research opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to go and do research abroad. Dodd, I think, has capitalized on the fact that a lot of undergraduates who are in the STEM sciences find it very difficult to go abroad because there's so many expectations for how you spend your time, and really how you spend your time should be research, right? Well, Dodd says, okay, great. Well, if you want an international experience, come do research at a lab in Germany. So if you're familiar with something like the National Science Foundation's research experience for undergraduates, or the shorthand version of that is NSF REUs, where you apply and you go, if you're accepted, you go to a different laboratory and work at some other lab, typically at a university somewhere else in this country. And actually, that's not even fair, because I've actually had students apply for NSF REUs to take place in the Mag Lab here in Tallahassee. So if you're familiar with that structure, this is very similar, except you're in an English-speaking lab in Germany, and so you're doing your lab work. You're getting to experience a lab in a different country, work with a different PI. Then when you're done with your research, you step out of lab and you're in another country. So you get an international experience as well. So I think that's really cool. And if you are thinking about graduate school in STEM outside the United States, and this would be a really convenient way to explore at least one German research university. I mentioned that this also, the DoD-RISE also applies to business and entrepreneur students, because they also have a component that they've just added in the past couple of years, where there are opportunities for you to not do lab work, but to say, okay, there's been some base research done here, and now these scientists want to get this product that they've created in the lab to market. And so entrepreneur and business students have an opportunity to help take those next steps forward. And so that's DoD-RISE. If it sounds interesting to you, and this is the year for you to do it, the application's actually open right now, and it closes December 15th. So it closes a month from today, or a month from a couple days ago. So if you're interested, I would say look at it immediately. If you just type in DoD-RISE, DAADRISE, it should be the first link that comes up. And go ahead and send me an email. If you want to do that, I'm going to just go ahead and toss my email in the chat box. If you want to do that, let me see if I can find the chat box. There it is. If you want to send me an email during this meeting, that'd be great, because I can respond to it today or tomorrow and get you an appointment. But you can go ahead and start taking some steps forward. The application is pretty simple. It's just some basic information, and then you get to write a cover letter, just like 1 to 1.5 pages cover letter to up to 3 programs that you're interested in. So it's 1 application and up to 3 cover letters, between 1 and 3 cover letters, based on, you get to look at all the research projects that are going on and pick your favorites. Again, if you're a business or entrepreneur, then you can look at the different projects that are going on in your field and pick, again, up to your top 3 favorites and submit cover letters for each of them to be considered. And so that would occur this summer. That's, as it says, 10 weeks there. So that's DoD-RISE. It's one of the ways that DAAD is helping to get Americans into Germany. The other one is something called the DAAD Study Scholarship. This, as you can tell, funds master's degrees. This funds up to 2 years for your master's degree. It gives you travel to and from Germany, monthly stipend, funding for your health insurance, as well as covers your tuition and fees at your German university. So let's say you do participate in DoD-RISE and you're like, oh my God, I loved this university that I was at, really built a good relationship with this one professor, and would love to go back and work with them. This could be a good way to do it. Also, you can have never had prior experience in Germany and still participate in the DoD Study Scholarship. Neither of these require that you have German language skills. As I mentioned with DoD-RISE, all of the labs are English-speaking labs. It tends to be the case these days for international research projects. They seem to default right now to English. And with the DoD Study Scholarship, it's really like, what do you need to be successful in this school? Well, you might think, I'll probably need a fair amount of German to study, the history of Germany in Germany. But there's a lot of programs that are built for international student populations. And again, those tend to default to English. So you might find, oh, this master's program is offered in both English and German, or only in English. So that is another route for you to get to Germany. Now, if you're interested in both of those, then the Fulbright U.S. Student Program is another good one for you to look at. I'm going to take a peek just to see if anyone has any questions so far. Let's see. There we go. Nope, not yet. Okay, that's good. Yeah, so the Fulbright U.S. Student Program. This was created in the 1940s with Senator William J. Fulbright saying, "Hey, let's put all this money that we've been putting toward this war, and let's put to something positive. Let's recognize that there was a bunch of violent discourse that has just occurred and had actually occurred, only 20 years prior, as well. And I think the best thing we can do is replace that violent discourse with civil discourse. Let's send people all over the world, and let's bring people from all over the world to the United States." So this is funded by our Congress and is run through the Department of State. This program funds year-long experiences outside of the United States in over 140 different countries. And the most common uses of Fulbright is to go abroad to earn a master's degree, pursue a research project, pursue a creative project, or to teach English for a year. They fund your travel to and from. They give you a stipend while you're there. I think they give it to you typically quarterly, and they provide you with health insurance. And so, similar to Dodd Study Scholarship, it funds your international graduate degree. It just, what it doesn't do is it doesn't fund 2 years. They're typically year-long projects or degrees. But it's a really fantastic program. The earliest you can apply for this one, similar to Dodd Study Scholarship, is that you apply your senior year. Dodd Study Scholarship is usually due November 1st of your senior year. The Fulbright is due October, typically early October. And we start working with both of them in the summer. Actually, with Fulbright, I tend to start working with those in the spring of your junior year, if you're interested. In both cases, you don't have to apply your senior year. You can apply after a gap experience, if it's 2 years, 3 years, 10 years. Fulbright also will fund your master, like will fund you doing a thesis project abroad for either your master's or your PhD. A lot of students will use the Fulbright U.S. Student Program to fund a year of research for their dissertation while they're working on their PhD. But again, it's available to soon to graduate undergrads as well. And so going abroad to teach English or do a research project or a creative project is your options there. Cool. And then we have CBYX, or Congress Bundestag Youth Exchange for Young Professionals. Bundestag is the German analog of the US Congress. And this is an opportunity for, as it says, 75 Americans to go to Germany and 75 Germans to come to the United States. This is young professionals, so this is typically geared to people who are just wrapping up their undergraduate or maybe have been out of college for a couple years. There's 3 phases, as it says there. You start off with an intensive 2-month German language training. The idea is that you gain about a year's worth of study in those 2 months. This happens while you're in Germany. And then you do 1 semester of coursework at a German university, again, specifically in your field. And then you do an internship in your field as well. And so it's ends up being 9 months altogether in Germany, which is about the same length as a Fulbright. This application's usually due around the beginning of November as well. The unique application, I like its questions. But it's several short answers. You just write about a paragraph for about 6 short answers, or at least that's how it's been the past few years. And particularly their latter questions are like, what is the benefit of living with a host family? And so you get to sort of give them your philosophy on why you think uh, they would prefer to put you with a host family than, like, have you find your own place to live. They also ask you a question like, what do you think the benefit is of living in a small town rather than being in like Berlin or Munich or some other major city that we as Americans are very familiar with. So they're looking for people who are interested in a unique tourist experience, a more immersive tourist experience. So this is a fantastic program, and they really cater to all fields. So the semester of coursework, taking courses in a field that's relevant to you, an internship that's in a field that's relevant to you. They really cater to whatever it is that you're interested in doing. So another really fantastic program. Um, Moving on. Oh, I think a question just popped up. Okay, let's see what we got here. When could we apply for this one? So CBYX is usually due at the beginning of November, and so that's when you would apply. I believe that the earliest you can apply is in your senior year, but I believe you can also apply after that as well. It's something that when I'm done with the PowerPoint, if I can come back to that question, I will actually just go to the website and confirm that, but I do believe so. Are the courses graduate level? That's a really fantastic question. I don't know that CBYX specifically offers graduate courses to the people who participate in the program. Let's circle back and see if we can find that information as well. Good questions. Stumped me on both of them. I didn't expect that. Okay. IPS, or the International Parliamentary Scholarship. Sorry. I'm going to move the list of attendees so I can see my notes here. So this one, very similar to CBYX, except rather than being broad and open to all fields, this one specifically focused on people who are interested in governance and understanding how the German government works. The idea here is that whoever participates, they expect will probably be involved in U.S. government and will have a strong connection to the German government. It's a 5-month scholarship, and you are basically an intern with a member of the Bundestag, which again is German's analog of the U.S. Congress. This program, I just realized I don't know exactly when it's due, but I believe that's due in the spring. So we can circle back for anyone who's curious. I did not write that down. Apologies. Let's see. And then I believe this is the last one I was going to mention. This is Humanity in Action. This fellowship is focused on human rights, social justice, as it says, discrimination and resistance. The way this program is built, as you can see from the image on the left, it doesn't just take place in Berlin. It doesn't just take place in Germany. It does take place in Berlin, but it takes place in several other cities around Europe, and then also in Atlanta in the US. You can apply for as many of these locations or as few of these locations as you would like to be considered for. It's one application. You just sort of check the boxes of which ones you want to be considered. And the idea here is that while each location is focused on having immersive conversations with the cohort of about 50 students per location in conversations around national histories of discrimination and resistance, because it's centered around the national histories. Those conversations vary from location to location. So, if you choose to go to Berlin, you're going to be talking about the rise of National Socialism. You're going to be talking about, in historical sense, and in present context, you're going to be talking about how Germany has handled the influx of refugees from Syria and Iraq. Um, and they really do a fantastic job at talking about uh, a number of different fields within the social justice. And so they'll talk about ableism. They really go through plenty, if not all, of the isms that they can. Um, and they connect it with each location, as I mentioned, and you take field trips, tours, you get guest speakers to come. Uh, and from all the students who FSU has had participate in this in the past 5 or 6 years that I've been with FSU, they've really, everyone has said that what has been most compelling to them about their time abroad has been the conversations that like their guest speakers or their tours spawned among the cohort. So among the 50 of you, they do a really good job, I think, in this application of, uh, well, first of all, diversifying you all geographically, because if you're in any of these locations, I think U.S. students only take up, I think, 20% of the population. I think the rest of them are going to be Europeans, and then you have people with different areas of interest and also different ways of thinking about how to address the things that they care about. And so you really sharpen each other um, by having like really intense conversations around these topics. And then the expectation is that you take the skills that you sort of gain from these conversations and this new knowledge and this new way of thinking about issues, your particular issue surrounding social justice, human rights. And the idea is that the expectation is that you then apply it to some effort within your community. And so there's a expectation of something of an entrepreneurial spirit here, and not entrepreneurial spirit in the sense of like you start a business, but like that you take some steps to make a difference on a topic that you care about within your community. It's a brief summer experience. It's 1 month. It goes by very quickly, but it's really fantastic. And I think if these topics interest you, it's worth applying for. This one is due. Um, this one's due January 7th this year. And so, like Dodd Rise, if this one speaks to you, um, go ahead and take a look at the application. And I've tossed my email address in the chat box, and um, like go ahead and email me and say, hey Josh, I'm looking at the app now. I'm looking at the website. I'd love to set up a time to talk about HIA or Dodd Rise. Cool. Okay, moving on. Yeah, so from here, I just have some tips for you. I think that I'm going to start with the second tip. One thing that all of these applications benefit from is you being able to say, this is something I care about, and here's evidence. Here's me engaging a topic that I care about through service work, internships, research, whatever it is. Being able to point to examples of how you have acted on your passions is really important. So I always encourage students to get involved. And you might think, well, I don't really know how to do that. It seems really complicated. Start talking to your professors. Your professors in the fields that you care about are involved, and they not only can talk to you about it with regards to academia, but they can talk to you about it if you're more interested in engaging in a field on a different plane. They should know people, and if it's their topic, they should know folks who are engaging the field in a different way. So talk to faculty. They also end up being really good recommenders. So the stronger relationships you have with them, the better. And then, as I say, come in and chat with us. Again, I probably should have edited that part to say chat with us, because come in is not a thing we do these days. But always happy to have a Zoom conversation with folks. And so even if you're like, oh well, I'm a sophomore and I'm interested in Fulbright, so there's nothing for me to do between now and my the end of my junior year, I would say if it's really how you feel, like that's fine, but you should still like just have a convo with us. Let's talk about what you can do, what you can start thinking about even now to make yourself a really good candidate for Fulbright a couple years from now. It's been the case. I've had a student who I worked with, who I met at orientation at FSU when I was doing a presentation for orientation one summer, who said, "Hey, I'm really interested in what you all do. I'd love to start chatting with you." And so we talked couple 3 or 4 times a semester. Every semester, he did not apply for a single thing until he applied for Fulbright in the summer before his senior year, and that's perfectly fine. And we can still have just a really good conversation. So if any of this sounds interesting to you, or the idea of a fellowship, even if none of these specifically sound interesting to you, then let's find a time to chat. And so, and probably on Friday, I'll be sending an email out to everyone, giving you a link to this presentation, because as I said, it was recorded. Um, and I'll just invite you to set up an appointment with me. So if that sounds interesting, don't hesitate to do so. So I am done talking. Also, I guess I'll just say follow us on social media. We post a lot about different fellowships on there. We also post a lot about your fellow students and alumni, so you can see what other classmates have done, and what and not to like rub it in or anything, but more as a, like, oh, that's cool. Like let me go do something like that. So follow us on our social media. Um, there are contacts for other people if you don't want to talk to me, but like what I'm talking about, that's fine. I would just rather you spend time with us, even if you don't spend time with me specifically. Cool. I am ready to answer people's questions. I see I have at least one. Does literacy in Germany increase applicants' chances? Would a minor in German increase your chances? Alexis, I imagine so. Um, I think that all else being equal, like if your applicant is just as good as someone else's application for like DoddRise, we both have very similar research experiences, good foundation, and it's clear how this particular opportunity you're applying for would be a really good next step forward. But one of these candidates has some German skills and the other one does not. I think at the very least, even if it's something like, again, DoddRise being the example I started with, a location that emphasizes the fact that you're not going to need German, it reflects an interest in the country that existed before you applied, right? Like you're saying, I have been interested in Germany for some time because I've been taking German language. That even if you didn't need the language skill itself, just shows that you have a curiosity about the country already. So I would imagine that in all of these cases, even if German isn't a requirement, it would not hurt you and would most likely help your application. Great question. I don't have any others at this moment, but I do have a couple that I was unable to answer earlier about CBYX, and so I would love to address those. I do have one more new question, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull up CBYX's website. And I'm gonna stop sharing. Hope you don't mind. I'm gonna pull up CBYX's website and see if I can answer 2 of your questions. And then I have this DoddRise one that just came in. DoddRise is the only program limited to research opportunities. Are there opportunities to do internship in a specific industry? That's a great question. I would say if you're looking for an opportunity to do research in a specific industry in Germany, DoddRise could be good, again, if you find that sort of entrepreneurial business opportunity that connects to the industry. But if you're looking for something, yeah, thank you so much for attending. If you're looking for something that you're not finding on DoddRise's website, then I would suggest CBYX would be a really good option for someone who wants to get an internship in a specific industry. Which of these options would be best for a postgrad before medical school? That's a great question. I would say if you're interested in med school, my suggestions would be Fulbright U.S. student program. Um, Fulbright U.S. student program. I'm writing it down because people sometimes spell it wrong. And also there's the Fulbright Scholars Program, which is for professionals, and that's not what you're looking for. And then the other one would be the one I'm looking up right now, CBYX Young Professionals. Yeah, I think those two would be best for someone who's looking for a gap experience before going to med school. And that gap experience could be exploring your field, right? Or it could be like teaching English. So exploring your field would be CBYX. It could also be Fulbright if you chose to do like a research project or do a master's degree. Like I've had a number of students who have done year-long master's degrees, like to focus on something like nutrition, and then come to the US and go to med school. Um, uh, and then, yeah, so I think both of these would be really good for postgraduate experience. Um, yeah, thank you so much for coming. Let's see. So the two class questions I had about CBYX were: are the courses taught at the graduate level, and when could we apply? Um, I think I said CBYX was due in mid-November, and I believe that is, or I said in early November, actually. I believe that is the case. I'm going to confirm that now. How to apply. I was due November 1st. And so it's due about November 1st every year. And so you can just count on that being the case next cycle as well. And then the second question that I read was the graduate courses. So let's see. Language school, tuition for costs for a month for 4 months of study. It does not actually say one semester of classes in one's academic or career field at a university, technical or professional school. Um, okay, here's something called the experience. Um, so they say that these are non-credited college courses. Um, it says because the details of study phase are in most cases not finalized until September, because German course offerings often change at the last minute, no information can be provided to your college before you go. This is in regard to whether or not you can earn credit at FSU for the or earn credit at your home institution for what you do abroad. Um, let's see. But it sounds like you can get credit for the coursework. You just have to work it out with your registrar. It's still that doesn't that what that sort of suggests to me is that's most likely undergraduate courses um, that you can choose to get credit for or not. Uh, but it does not seem like that question is being answered. And so let's see. I have who asked me that. What I would say is, if you want to follow back up with me in my email, it's something that I can reach out to the CBOIX representative specifically about. I think I've attempted at least to answer all of the questions here. Um, yeah, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure speaking with everyone. I hope the rest of your week goes well, and then I hope you have a lovely Thanksgiving break and stay safe. And as I said, I'll be sending out the recording of this as well as an invitation to set up an appointment with me if you'd like to talk any further about these or any other opportunities. Yeah, take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.